Hello guests, we have with us today the youngest ever member of parliament of Ukraine, Mr.
Sviatoslav Yurash, but the students I was studying with in Kolkata in 2013 called me Sweet Love. That's the short.
Sweet Love.
Sviatoslav, and the Sweet Love shortening is very understandable. And I don't mind because my name is difficult. My parents were considered of internationals naming me, so my name is mangled in all different ways, so I don't mind.
Welcome to India, by the way.
I am delighted to return. I love your country, and I will always love your country.
I am from Calcutta, if you know.
Ah, I live in Bidhan.
Okay.
That's where the dormitory was.
Awesome.
And basically I was walking, I tried to walk every day but didn't succeed, but I tried walking all the time from Bidhan to the campuses of the University of Kolkata.
Okay.
And that was always a revelation. I ate all the street food.
Okay.
And I loved it, every part of it.
I can
Kolkata
guess
was a revelation of how magnificent the world is and how lovable India is.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel in terms of being the youngest policymaker of your country? You have a lot of burden to represent the will of your people. How do you feel about this responsibility, sir?
I mean, this is an opportunity also. Opportunity to showcase that people at our age can essentially present plenty of ideas and achieve plenty of things. I mean, politics is a thankless job in a sense, because obviously politicians never in any place have a good reputation. They're always are to blame for everything because they are most visible parts of the bureaucracy.
Correct.
Even if they're not, but that's not the point. The point is to try and utilize the superpowers you have as a member of parliament to bring many more individuals, ideas, projects into existence. So the members of parliament, they have two superpowers. One is to annoy government institutions as much as possible until they actually do what you ask them to do.
Right.
And doesn't mean they'll do it. It means that they can basically suffer until they actually listen to you. And second is to get a meeting with somebody. Doesn't mean get it right away, but because of the reality of membership of parliament, meeting is most likely.
Right.
And those two things can be combined to try and achieve many great ideas, and not just Ukraine-wise, but internationally.
Interesting.
Not one way can fall.
So, Sweet Love, you are in New Delhi, right? And you might have some expectations from India in terms of what's going on with your country. What are those expectations?
I expect India to be a deciding power in the 21st century. And I imagine Indians also expect that. It's the largest nation on earth. It's 1.5 billion people at least that are trying to contribute to the great questions of our time. So in that discussion, the biggest war since Second World War, launched by the biggest nation on earth, demanding to annex the biggest nation in Europe, is not to be missed. And to me, what Prime Minister Modi said to President Putin is very clear symbol that is unacceptable for India as well. The fact that in this century you cannot just invade countries, you cannot just take them over, you cannot just impose your will with the power of weaponry. This is not that age. Empires are gone, and this imperialism that Russia is certainly trying to use here is not to be ignored. And I'm very blessed that the message that we share in India is very simple. We Ukrainians want to choose what the future of Ukraine should be. As I believe Indians should be deciding what Indian future should be.
Absolutely.
So the point for us is very simple. We are fighting left and right. Russia says that we know better than you. That sounds like every empire, you have enough of history. That the age of empires is gone. Thankfully.
100%. You totally consent to Mr. Modi's statement about the age of war is no longer in order. Building upon that, because of the war that your country is seeing right now, which has also caused a lot of pain to the region, to the world in terms of global governance outcomes, etc. There is a conflict of security interests of parties involved in this crisis, right? What do you think led Russia to do this, what they are doing? Was there any sanity involved in that discussion that led to such a decision?
Mr. Putin is very clear about this, always been. He always said that he believes that we, Ukrainians and Russians, are the same nation. And we Ukrainians, throughout our independence, by every poll and measurement, ever since the independence referendum in 1991, have always said that we want to be our own nation. Every part of Ukraine said that at the referendum, and ever since, as far as the polls are concerned, Ukrainians have been committed to their independence. The basic idea here is that Mr. Putin doesn't see the reality,
Right.
that we are a separate nation, and he wants to enforce that with the power of a sword. That again is something that was done throughout history. But this day and age, thankfully, the global community comes together, and as I see in G20, usually foreign directed discussions of different kinds, basically always mentions this invasion, because this blatant invasion is a tragedy, not just for Ukraine, but for the world. Ukraine has been fundamental as far as the breadbasket of many countries
Right.
of the so-called global south and Indo-Pacific as well. And the shortages that exist now are to blame entirely and squarely on what Russia is doing in Ukraine. Because it's not just the killing of my friends, of my comrades in arms, destruction of our country. The reality is that they are destroying the economic cycles that provide one of the biggest grain exports of the world, the chance to provide nourishment for peoples all around the world. And that is one of the largest crimes imaginable. And it's not just a European problem in that sense, it's a global problem in that sense. Because Russia, if it would succeed, then many more despots, autocrats, dictators, and madmen would imagine they can do the same thing.
It sets up
Invade
precedent.
countries. Yes, it sets a clear precedent. It's not just a small country somewhere. We are the largest country in Europe. I understand that compared with the realities of India, it does not sound drastic, but for Europe, we are the largest country in Europe. So the point is, if we are allowed to be destroyed by an aggressive whims of a dictator, what will happen is that many more, even in Asia, in the Pacific especially, will try and think that they can do that again.
Right.
And again, we have to move beyond that. And when such wars are started, the world needs to be clear about the impermissibility of it. And I'm glad to, not just the phrase of Mr. Prime Minister Modi is wonderful and a clear step of India's position on the matter. Beyond that, India has provided humanitarian aid of different kinds, big and small. I mean, for example, in our capital, Kiev, sadly, one of the biggest schools that teaches different languages of the so-called East, including Hindi, has been destroyed in the Russian attempt to capture a capital. And the story is that basically Indian efforts and Indian support have been given to try and restore the school. So big and small, India is involved. I wanted to be involved much, much more, but it's our job as Ukrainians to come here to India, tell the story of Ukraine, tell the story of what's happening right now and what happened before, in the language between our countries, and try to present the reasons for why Ukraine can be relevant, should be relevant for India, and to try and convince different people who have different perspectives, because this Ukrainian perspective has not been here before, of the fact that this is something of a test or a global role that India will certainly have in this century.
And thank you for the answer, Sviatoslav.
I'm sorry for the long answer. I'm just
And-
passionate about something.
That's completely fine. We need a very strong discourse between young people of Ukraine and India.
Amen.
Amen. Going forward, do you think if the West had sent a very strong signal to the aggressive party, that if they attack you, it would not be tolerated? Do you think outcomes would have been different?
So two things. First, nobody believed in us in that clear fashion. We received some support, and we were blessed with that support for the war, because we were not defenseless by no means. For many years, especially since the Russian occupation of Crimea and the Russian invasion of the eastern Ukraine in 2014, it was very clear that Ukraine needs to rebuild, as it needs to get its army in order. So there was much preparation, and we cooperated with plenty of the world to try and get that done. So it's not as if the West wasn't, and generally the world wasn't involved in trying to build up our ability to defend ourselves. That's first. Second, I mean, the whole story and discussion misses a crucial part of the story. After the Soviet Union collapsed, we had the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. We gave that up for guarantees of security, independence, and sovereignty and integrity from different world powers, the Security Council of the UN. And the fact of the matter is, when these were violated, nothing happened. Yes, sanctions happened, yes, steps happened, but is that something that a power that gives up that potential expects? No, we expected so much more. And now I think the world is coming to the realization that to allow a destruction of the Ukrainian state would be to provide to every other nation on earth basic lesson. If you don't have nukes, you are done. If somebody wants to destroy you, basically. So as far as Ukraine is concerned, this struggle is not just a question of Ukraine's sovereignty, integrity, and the precedent. It's also about nuclear proliferation in that sense. So for me, it's important to remember and remind that the world coming senses right now is about supporting a state that willingly gave up that arsenal and to try and reinforce the basic idea of UN Charter. Nations cannot invade each other, claim, annex, occupy, destroy. We have to work together.
That sounds about right, Sviatoslav. We would, do our best to disseminate your views to the Indian people, and so that we can advocate for a policy action at a global governance level to stop the, whatever that the Ukrainian people have been seeing. And lastly, what is your message to, young people of India? And we would strive to disseminate it again.
You will decide the century. You will decide how the century will go, because you are certainly the powers in many different institutions all around the world. And we see the young Indian people not just in India, we see them in Ukraine. We have a bright Indian diaspora in Ukraine. Indian Ukrainians are plentiful, and they basically provide many examples. They give us all hope that we can all together build the future as young people in our countries.
Thank you, Sviatoslav.
Thank you.